Good morning, y'all. I keep saying good morning, but of course, welcome from wherever y'all are joining from, whether you are here at Behance or you are watching it on our YouTube channel. I hope that y'all are having a great day. Welcome back to another Photoshop Creative Challenge. My name is Idara Ekpoh. I'm going to be your host for the day, and I'm really excited to walk y'all through some editing of portraits in Photoshop. But today, we're going to be specifically focusing on selective color. I'm really excited about today because selective color is my favorite tool to utilize, especially when it comes to color grading my images. So I'm really excited. I have two examples that hopefully we can get through today during this stream. So let's go ahead and not waste any time and let's get started. So I have two portraits here, one that's of me, and then one that is of one of my friends practicing yoga. And so we're gonna go ahead and hopefully get through two of these examples and show y'all how I would utilize selective color in both of these spaces. You can tell that they're already right off the bat, two different completely types of images as far as the lighting situation. So this one is direct sunlight, but we have a lot of black space here to utilize. And then here we have the blue sky, green grass, we have the color of her clothing, of her outfit as well. And so there's a lot of more color to play around with this image. So I'm going to go through both examples to get an idea of how I would utilize selective color in both of these cases. So before we get started, the first thing that I always say to do is make sure you duplicate your layer. That way if you need to go back and start it all over, it's easy to just delete a layer, then go ahead and, exit out the file and re-upload your file into Photoshop. So I'm going to come down to our adjustment layers, and right here immediately, if you can see it, I hope you guys can, it says selective color, and we have this little properties box that pops up here. So I'm going to go ahead, let me zoom this in a little bit so you guys can see the changes of color that is going to occur. I like to use selective color in a number of different ways, but the reason why, well, let me start here. The reason why I really enjoy selective color is because you can really target specific colors that are in your image and edit that color only. So what I mean is you have your reds, you have your yellows, greens, cyans, blues, magentas, white, neutrals, and blacks that you can focus on. And I really love this because I like to target certain photo colors in my image, especially in a photo like this. We have the blue, so I'm going to want to edit the blue of the sky, the blue of her outfit, the bluish greenish of her outfit. Maybe I want to target the green of the grass and change the color of that. So I really love how I'm able to really target each individual color, and then within those colors, you can edit this. You can really target the sign, maybe if there's cyans in the reds, magenta, yellow, blacks, etc. One of the cases, in the case of this photo, is I use selective color also when I'm editing skin and making sure that my skin tones come up to be rich. And so we're going to actually start off with this. So I already really like what my skin looks like, but I do want to make it pop a little bit more. And when you are editing skin, I always say that usually reds, orange, and yellows are the colors that are going to be targeted in the skin. And so I'm going to start off with, let me start off with yellow, because I feel like I have more of a golden undertone. And I'm just going to start to adjust this layer. And so usually what I like to do is just play around. I don't have a specific science to it or a formula that I use every single time. I might start off, in this case of me, with yellows, and then I'll just toggle the slider back and forth to see what that looks like. So as I am adding more cyans, I don't like what that's doing to my skin. So I'm going to go ahead and remove some of the cyans, and I'd like added a little bit more color there, so you can see, hopefully you can see that slight change that occurred there. And I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see the change in my skin. We're getting really up close and personal right now. Yep. There's a level of vulnerability that comes to editing a photo of yourself on a live stream. All right, and then I'm going to come here to my magenta, and again, same thing, just toggle back and forth. I don't want to remove magenta because I don't like the way that looks on my skin, so I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to toggle back and forth the yellows, add some yellow into my skin a little bit. And then I like to add a little bit of blacks because you can just see it just adds a little bit of contrast there. So that's before and that is after. So a slight difference, but I feel like my skin is popping a bit more. And I really like the tone of the skin. The next thing that I want to do here is I want to go to my reds and just see what that would do to this image as well, as far as focusing on my skin. However, I don't want to edit on the same layer. And the reason why is because if I decide that I don't like the yellows point blank period, it's easier for me to delete a separate layer than for me to edit all these colors in one layer. And then now I'm kind of stuck. So I like to do my selective color in individual layers. So I'm going to title this one yellows. And I'm going to come back here to adjustment layers, click selective color again. And you see this box is still here, and we're going to go ahead and go to red. So I'm going to title this reds. Let me see. Tim said huge vulnerability. Yep, Tim, you know, because, you know, just editing a photo, it's one thing when you're editing portraits of other people, but yourself, it's like, ooh, it's real personal. We're getting real personal today. So I'm going to start with science. And again, I just toggle these back and forth until I get something that's kind of appealing to my eye. So that's too red for me. That's okay, just a little bit. And we're just going to toggle back and forth until you get something that you like. And it's really just a game of, yeah, I do like that a little bit. It's just really kind of playing and seeing what your eye catches. I'm going to zoom out a little bit just so I can see the full picture and make sure I get an idea of what that looks like. So if I group this real quickly for y'all to see, that is the before and that is the after. So I feel like my skin is popping. It's more like radiant. You can see also, like, I feel like, especially that I'm in direct sunlight, I really want my skin to glow a bit more. So this is the before and that is the after. And I'll zoom in a little bit so you guys can see that clear. Ooh, that's too much. That's a little too much. But yeah, that's that before and that is after. So yeah, so I love to do separate layers. Just because, again, if I didn't like these reds, I could just delete the layer like that, and bam, I'm back to where I was before. Instead of having to do like, you know, undo whatever layer that is currently being utilized. I don't like to do that because once you get so deep into your editing, you might realize I actually don't like the color blue that I edited, and I did that so many steps ago. And you want to be able to just have them separately so you can also toggle and see how each specific layer is impacting your photo. And then if you don't like it, you can delete it. If you like it, you can keep it. So it's kind of really nice to have that flexibility there. So I think for my skin right now, I'm okay. What I am going to do is I really love that there is a lot of black space in this photo. And what I really am kind of thinking is when we go back to this selective color, you guys will see that there is also blacks, neutrals. And so in this photo specifically, there's a lot of black. So I kind of want to play around with the colors of the black. I can keep it black if I want to, or maybe I would want to add some cyans, magenta, yellows, blacks, etc. into the image. But before I do that, I'm just going to quickly take a brush, put this on black. And I don't like, this is just me doing this right now because I want to give you guys an idea what this final image would look like. And I don't like that you can see this, the stand. So all I'm gonna do is just, and who knows if this is the correct way to do it, this is how I did it, because there's so much black here. I just want the focus to be on me and I wanna remove these distractions. So I'm just gonna take my brush, make it pretty big, and I'm gonna put this to the flow of 100 because we don't need to see it at all. And I'm just coming in here and I am literally just blacking it out. So this is really gonna be a little messy, but I just prefer that. Oh, put that back there. There we go. So just real quickly, nothing too crazy. And this isn't even really the focus for today. That just was really bothering me. And I'm gonna kind of erase it. So this is more of a straight line. Okay, we'll go back to this brush, make it a little smaller and get this little spot right here. Okay, that's a little messy of a job, but you know, it's cool, it's fine. You guys get the picture. Okay, so we're just gonna make a straight line there. Okay, cool. So at least I feel like that looks a lot better there. And I do see a question. The question says, why wouldn't you isolate the subject when using selective color? Aren't you also changing the, so that's another thing. So if you want to, because in this specific photo, there are no other reds in this image outside of my skin. There are no other yellows in this image outside of my skin. So I don't need to isolate the subject because the color isn't really changing anything else. Like if you look, as I toggle back and forth, this before and after is really only, and I'll zoom in so you guys can see this as well. Hold on. It's only impacting my skin. You don't see that this, you don't see that the area of the sun is changing, the blacks, because there's no reds there, there's no yellows there. So specifically in regards to that, that's what I prefer to do. And someone asked, why not crop a little bit? I just like the way that this image looks overall. So I didn't want to crop it at all. So I kind of like having all of this black space in it. So that's kind of like a preference there. So I'm going to go back here and do selective color. And also sometimes I just like to see what it looks like overall in all of the image, overall in the image. And then I see comment here, click at the send and then shift click and then give you a straight. Oh, okay. Thank you, Tim. That's actually a really nice tip there. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to come down to blacks, and this is going to be really interesting. I kind of want to see what does this do to the overall image. So here you can, like we were talking about before, I can remove cyans, I can add cyans, or I can do the same thing with magenta, yellow, black, and just see how that's impacting my overall image. And sometimes too, again, going back to the point of why not isolate the subject, etc. Sometimes there might be something I'm doing that I like what it's doing in a certain portion of the image. And so if that's the case, I will just edit overall, and the areas I'm like, okay, I don't like it impacting maybe my skin, then I can just go in and erase that portion of the mask, or invert it, and maybe there's only one small portion I really want to change, whatever the case might be. So it might be longer to do it that way, but I just like to see the overall picture and then pull back in the areas that I feel like I need to pull back in. So again, focusing on the blacks, we have all of this. Come on, shift back here. Let's go back here real quickly. Okay, cool. So we have all of this black space, and it's nice to be black, but I kind of want to play around and see what colors I get. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of cyans there. A little bit, maybe like a -3 of that magenta. That is that before, and that's that after. I feel like it now is starting to tone the overall image and create more of an interesting look of this portrait. And I'm gonna leave this at 0. So just me removing a little bit of the cyans, adding some magenta and yellow, I really like this overall kind of reddish tone I'm getting to this image. And I also like the way that it looks on my skin as well. So if I didn't like the way that it looked on my skin, I could just take my eraser tool and just literally remove the mask on that specific portion of me if I felt like it was too much or changing the color of my overall skin tone. I personally like the way it looks, so I'm gonna keep it as is. But that will be that before and that after. So you can see how just in three specific layers and in quick movements, really, we've been able to really transform the way that this image looks and kind of grade it specifically. So I really love the way that this looks. And I think I'm going to kind of stop here for this image. So just to give you guys a recap of what we did, always make sure you duplicate your layer. And then when you do selective color, you can target each individual color that you want to focus on. And my biggest tip is to do them on separate layers. That way you can focus on editing those specific colors. And if you don't like something, you can always change it. For example, if I came back to selective color again, and I'm going to move this layer all the way to the top. So this was my blacks. Let me make sure. Another tip, make sure you're always labeling your layers, especially when you're using so many selective layers. You want to make sure that you are naming them so you can keep track of everything. I'm gonna come here to neutrals. I don't oftentimes mess around with neutrals, just sometimes I like to see what it does. So I actually kind of like the way that looks. And that's a little too purple for my liking. And we're just gonna go ahead and I actually really like that. And then if I felt like something was too much, I could come and reduce the opacity of that layer as well. So I actually really like that. So I'm gonna stop here. So that is the before and that is the after. So I really love how we've added a little bit of red and magenta to this photo to just create an interesting look within the shadows and just, again, making my skin pop out a little bit more than what it was naturally. So that is this image. I think that I am good to go. I'm gonna leave it as is. I'm not gonna change anything else with this. And we're gonna go ahead and move over to our second example to show you all what it looks like to edit multiple colors. You know, in that first image, we had a lot of black, so there wasn't really a lot for us to work in. We just had black, red, and yellow that's in my skin. And then here we have the blue, the green in the grass, the kind of bluish, greenish color of her outfit. And so we have a number of different colors that we can kind of play around with. So again, I'm gonna duplicate my layer, come down here to selective color, and I'm gonna start off with, I'm gonna leave her skin for now. I'm gonna start off with blues and see what that does. And it might be more of a cyan than blue in the sky. So the only layers I feel like I do together is cyans and blues, just because I feel like they usually are targeting the one area that I wanted to target. So we're gonna start here with the blues. I'm gonna add a little bit more of that cyan. I'm gonna just go back and forth, and you can see how right now it's not really doing anything. It's doing a little bit to the sky, but it's kind of changing her outfit. And I actually like this more of a teal color for her. And then I'm gonna go back and forth. That teal is now turning into more of a green. I'm gonna keep it blue like that. What does that look like so far? Yeah, it pops it out a bit more. And then I'm gonna add some black so it can have a bit more depth to it. Let's see. See, comment in the first image, the reddish tone of the surrounding blacks looks like a frame and gives a new depth. That is what I'm talking about right there. I'll go back real quickly. That's what I was kind of going for. And so thank you for putting that in words, because sometimes I have it in my head, but I don't communicate it that well. So that is exactly what I was going for. I like how it's really framing the overall subject, me essentially. So it looks like a frame now, and it really just creates a new level of depth from what you were seeing before. So that was a really great observation. I love that. So I'm gonna go back here so we can see that we've kind of more so focused on changing her outfit. We did do a little bit in the sky. I'm gonna come back to selective color, create a new layer. I'm gonna call this one cyans. Let me come here to blue and see what that does. And I actually don't mind as it's changing, because I don't really have an idea of what I want when it comes to her outfit. I think I kind of want to keep it more blue. So I like that. So let me go ahead and call this blues. Let's see. The angle of the shadow works well with your post too. Thank you so much, Carol. I agree. I love that y'all are seeing the vision. Okay, let's go ahead and go back to select color again. I'm gonna try to target the greens. There's a lot of, really the greens are mainly in the grass and in the trees behind her. So I just wanna see what this will do. And it might be more of greens and yellows, because as I'm toggling back and forth this green, I'm not seeing much changes. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep that layer because there wasn't much there, and see what yellow does. Yep, so it's more so yellow. But now, as I am doing this, it's now impacting her skin, if you can see. So this would be a great place for me to have, separated the subject. Or in this case, because she doesn't have a lot of skin exposed, I might be taking the longer route, but I'm gonna just do what I want and focus on the green in the photo, which I want it really vibrant and deep. And you can see, like, I don't like what it did to her skin at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in here. And I'm just going to erase that off of her. And I'm just gonna do a messy, and actually there's no green in the sky, so I'm actually fine to just do that. And just take that out of her face. Okay, cool. So now her face is fine. Oh, we are moving around a little bit too much. I'm gonna make this brush a little smaller to come down to her hands. Go ahead and erase that. And then I don't believe it's impacting her outfit either, because it's more so blue than green. So it also makes it easier to just kind of do more of a messy, I don't have to stay within the lines of her, the shape of her body essentially. Okay, great. Make sure I get her hands fully. And then let's go ahead and zoom back out. And you can see now that green is popping a lot more. So I love the color of the blue in the sky, the green in the grass as well. I'm gonna come back, add another layer, and let's go ahead and focus on her skin. I'm gonna focus on the reds and the yellows specifically. So I'm gonna just toggle this back and forth and see what it's doing to her face. And sometimes, again, I can go really drastic to one side, really drastic to the other side, so I can really get an idea of where I might want to start, and then I can always just like pull back. Okay. So let's go ahead and zoom back out so I can see what that all looks like. That's really nice. And then I'm going to come here. See now, and then, like I said, make sure you guys label your layers as you're going. This was reds, and then I'm gonna do yellows here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and see if this impacts her skin at all. Yeah, I think we're good here. Lovely. Yeah, I think I like the way that that is looking so far. Yep, I'm gonna keep that as is. So this is what the before looked like, a bit more, I mean, it's flat, it's raw file, so it's very flat. And now I feel like I'm able to bring out a bit more of that green and warmth in the grass. I really love the color of the sky. This could be a really great photo for when we, another lesson that we'll talk about this week that's focusing on more so skies in my images. But yeah, I really love how that is popping out more. And so again, for me, selective color is a really, really great tool to utilize when you're kind of starting off your color grading. There was still so much I would still do to this image with other adjustment layers, but I love to start off with selective color because you can really target specific colors within your photo. And then as you are targeting, you can just really isolate. And so, whereas, for example, if I was editing in Lightroom, if I'm editing in Lightroom and I want more overall changes, that's great. But when I want to target just the sky or just the grass, and or maybe I wanted to, maybe her outfit was also like we saw before, her outfit is kind of blue, the sky is blue. So I'm adjusting the layers in the blues and it's impacting both, but maybe I only want to change her outfit and not the sky. And I can really target those specific areas, which I really love. I think the only other thing that I'm going to do is I kind of want to come and see what we have, some white in the sky. So I'm going to kind of come down here and add one more layer, and we're going to do whites. And we have the white band, we have the white in the building here, the white that's in the sky, also the highlights of your image as well. And I just want to see what does that do to our image as we toggle this back and forth. So I really want to add more of that cyan. I like the way that that looks. Going back, ooh, I really like this kind of blue tint that the photo is now has. Yeah, bluish greenish tint. That's really, really nice. Oh yeah, that's really beautiful. Let's see. Oh, Camera Raw is also another option. So if you want to start in Camera Raw and then go into your editing, that's also another process that I do. But in this case, I just wanted to show you guys specifically what selective color will do to your image. So I would start in Camera Raw and then go into doing my color grading. So I didn't do any kind of color correction for this image. I just went in straight into my color grading. I usually use another thing, yes, Lightroom for toning, Photoshop for retouching. That's another great tip there. But now that I've added the whites, you can see that it kind of added more of this bluish greenish tint to the overall photo. And now that is our before, and that is our graded image so far. And then going back to this portrait as well, our before and our after. So we can see how drastic those two befores and afters are compared with really just using one specific tool in Photoshop, utilizing those selective color layers. So I really hope that y'all enjoyed today's lesson. Utilize selective color, make sure you create individual layers so that way you can always go back and adjust as need be. And I will see y'all tomorrow for another lesson on another great portion of Photoshop. Have a great day.